Brings us to probably the one thing I want to find out more about.
Okay.
Which is learning everywhere.
Yes, okay.
Which I think is a good step, because from my standpoint, and I know it varies from a lot, but my standpoint is that a child does not deserve a public education. A child does deserve a publicly funded education, which basically puts the emphasis on the child and the parents directing their child's education versus I happen to live in a zip code and there's the building and I'm there. You're starting off with the concept learning everywhere, which is starting to disrupt that.
Well, I mean, actually what I would say is it's helping it along. I can tell you, so Learn Everywhere embeds concepts that the state of New Hampshire and the education system has embraced for many, many years. In 2005, we put into our rules the aspiration that all kids get these varied learning experiences by various organizations and talented individuals and nonprofits and for-profits and community organizations, everything, right? We said that this is important, and it's a shall in our rules, which basically means that school districts are supposed to be doing this. That was in 2005. In 2011, the State Board of Education did a study on extended learning opportunities and essentially said every kid ought to have one of these things. In 2011, the State Board adopted a vision that basically talked about the need to do this. And the reason why they were saying that this is so important is, the current education system has implicit barriers. Not all kids thrive in that system. There are some kids who just check out and they're not engaged. There's too much drama. For whatever reason, it almost doesn't matter. So we know that we got to create these alternative learning pathways for kids. Some districts have really embraced this and done a great job with it, and they've got a lot of extended learning types of opportunities for kids that create these kinds of pathways. Other districts have struggled to do that, in spite of the fact that we've been working on it for 14 years now. And so Learn Everywhere is really a program to allow me to help those districts accomplish the vision that we have had for students all along. By engaging in different, like our community partners, which is what we talk about in our vision statement and in our rules, really, to be able to get there. An example of this that I like to talk about is I was at Central High School one evening. It was about 8:30 at night, and there were about 15 or 20 kids there.
In what town?
In Manchester. Okay. Central High School in Manchester. About 15 or 20 kids there, and when I walked in, there were a FIRST robotics team. And they design and program robots to do competitions.
So Dean came in.
Yes, exactly. So when I first came in, I got some kids who are sitting in this one area and they were programming in Java to allow their robots to navigate through a course. And I'm like, wow, this is great. These kids are really learning how to code, right, to get their thing working. I had some other kids who were working in a shop with 2 engineers from Bosch to design their robots. So they've got these expert world-class engineers helping them learn how to design robots and build robots and solve all kinds of problems. And at one point during the visit, there's the young lady who was a captain of the team came to me and said, "Commissioner, you have to help me." Hang on a second, I have to help myself.
By all means.
"You have to help me, Commissioner. The school closes at 9. We need the school open till 10 o'clock. And I just thought to myself, ding, I win. I've got kids begging me to open up their access to the school so they can learn more, right? But the second thought that I had is when those kids finish with all this learning in coding and learning in engineering, then they get to go home and do their homework, because the learning that they've been doing for the last 4 or 5 hours, that doesn't count, right? That was just fun, because it's not school. So what we have to recognize is that learning is not limited from 7:30 to 2:30 inside a building, right? Learning is happening all over the place. And if we can get these opportunities for kids, what you'll find is when they start having success in some alternative program like that, it helps them to be successful in the actual environment itself, because they're like, they feel good about themselves. They're like, I can learn, I'm okay, I got capacity, I can do something. And these are kids who otherwise just seem to struggle all day long in the 7:30 to 2:30 system and not succeeding. We give them C's, we give them D's, we tell them that you didn't quite get there. So let's create environments where they can succeed, and we can help them realize that they have capacity, they can learn, they have the capability, and we can draw them in. And so that's really the direction that Learn Everywhere is taking us, is fulfilling a vision that New Hampshire has had for learning for many years to help engage all of our kids. We know, and the research supports, that kids who are engaged in their learning learn more and they don't get into trouble. Those are really important things for kids today.
Well, certainly the local school board has a lot to do with that. Such as, okay, we'll stay open till 10.
They don't have, why? Learning doesn't have to happen there, right? Yeah.
Well, but usually in a group environment, oftentimes you have to be...
If they were in the school. Yep.
Correct. How receptive to this idea are the local school boards? Is this something that they are embracing? Some of them are saying, get out of my face.
So we've tried to be really careful in terms of not violating local control, right? So what these Learn Everywhere programs do is allow students to get credit towards leading to graduation that deal with the minimum standards. Remember, it's the State Board of Education that authorizes a school and a school board. It's the State Board of Education that tells the local school board, in order to graduate the students, they have to meet these minimum standards for education, which is a list of 20 credits that a student needs to accumulate. Now, that's what the minimum standards are, and Learn Everywhere will help students to meet those minimum standards. What Learn Everywhere does not do is define what a student needs in order to graduate from a high school. So for example, there's the local control. We're defining how you can get credits leading to minimum standards, but the local school board is going to be the entity that decides what you need to graduate and get a diploma from their high school. And the state board is not wandering into that area. They're leaving that discretion up to the local school board. So we've really tried to be careful about how we parse that.
Okay. Local control. My take on this is that the most local control is that of the parent.
Yes.
And being a software engineer, I know that most of my programming is not in just making the software work, it's doing the defensive programming all around it. You know, keep it from making its own mistakes and keep people from making either accidental or mandatory mistakes around it,
okay,
i.e. hacking.
Yes.
So what if there is a child that has an interest in doing robotics or some other type of program,
right,
but the local school board is not? Do you foresee empowering the parent, the most local of control, to be able to still do something for their child around a local school board that says, nope, we're going to stick to the old 1890s warehouse school system, and you will do what we say and no more and no less?
So one would hope that a local school district has the students' best interests in heart and wants to work with parents to create the best possible opportunities. And so the school board itself would embrace these kinds of opportunities for students. The way that we've configured Learn Everywhere, though, is if a school district is, less interested in that kind of a thing, but it is a very interesting thing to the family, the parents would be able to choose that option, but it doesn't do anything with money, so there's no dollars involved with anything. So a parent could elect that to allow their student to accumulate credits leading to graduation. But again, that student would have to bring that credit back into that school, and the school board would be deciding what you need to graduate. We're just giving you the minimum standard. So we know that we're working on that 20 minimum, but not whatever else the school board wants the student to graduate.
Yeah. And I ask this because I know in my local school board and a number of others around the state, if you go to a school board meeting, they will have a public comments session, but it is only the public does what they want. You cannot ask the school board any questions because they refuse to answer back. Which to me...
Well, I think that's probably varying. Some school boards are much more engaged and willing to answer back, and I'm sure they'll meet with you and engage you. Yeah.
Some. And I know that in mine, they've made it very difficult for parents to approach the people that they elected to the school board.
Right.
So that's why I asked the question about the most local control, that if a school board doesn't want to participate, but the parent knows that is the best thing for my child.
Yep, we're trying to create that pathway. Yeah, we're trying to make sure that pathway is built in there.
And that really goes into another program that you're doing for family engagement.
Yes. So we do have the Scholastic Center on Family Voice in the state. And really this comes along with, just like Learn Everywhere and many of the programs we're doing, we're trying, as you described, a system that was designed in the 1800s, you know, and we got to move the system forward. So we're trying to move the system forward, and it's hard to move a system forward because there's a lot of people who've been working in it for a long time. It has a lot of stasis in terms of being able to move. So, but it is also not fair for me to ask to move a system without helping everybody kind of move along. And so there are two programs in particular. You mentioned the New Hampshire Center for Family Voice, and we have what's referred to as a UDL program as well that I want to talk about. The New Hampshire Center for Family Voice is we're trying to move a system, but many parents themselves have experienced school, and they think they know what school should look like, and they're resistant to changing school. They're saying, hey, here's how school was when I went 30 years ago, and here's what it's gonna be like for you, right? And so this New Hampshire Center for Family Voice is really trying to empower parents in that process of engage and help the schools as well to engage the parents so that we can create communication and everybody can kind of move forward together, right? Because I think it's important that that happens. The second is about UDL, is called Universal Design for Learning, and this is really to help my educators move forward, because many of the people who are educators were taught when they went to college in what's referred to as a stand and deliver model. Like, I taught it, did the kids learn it? Is another story perhaps, right? And so that model has shifted, and all the educators know that it's shifted. It has to be about student learning, not about teaching. You teach all day long, but if nobody learns anything, you haven't met the objective. And so this helps those educators with specific skills to be able to kind of shift the table around and focus on learners. And, you know, Universal Design for Learning helps them to differentiate, you know, instruction in their classroom so that every single student can get to their best possible outcome. So all of these different pieces are helping to move the education system into the 21st century, and realize kind of the vision that New Hampshire has had for education that, you know, does harness community resources, creates flexible, innovative, creative environments that allow students, you know, to find different pathways to be able to get to success.
Well, certainly it sounds like the path that I would hope for is starting. And it looks like you're trying to move a lot all at the same time, because I look at how life is right now. We are moving very quickly into a decentralized environment, except for politics, but that's a whole nother story, where everything is done locally. Mass customization.
Mass customization, exactly.
In the manufacturing field. You look in the computers, everything is gone. I started when mainframes were the big deal. Then it went to mini computers, then it went to PCs. And now
Now it's like right here. Do I have a phone in my pocket? But
yeah,
you know what? Yeah.
Your phone has more power than the Apollo space program.
There you go.
And basically, it is a walking, talking, video playing, song singing type of device that has literally disrupted everything. And I feel that education, and a lot of our readers feel that education is ripe for that same kind of deal. And we see the explosion in the alternative ways of doing education, where you have the traditional government schools, you have private schools along with them, you now have charter schools. In fact, you're working with I guess it's called the New Hampshire Career Academy.
Career Academy, yes.
Gosh, did I spell it that badly? And I've heard you talk about what you've done out in Great Bay, out in the Seacoast, where you've started a state-sponsored charter school, if I get the terminology.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but you have some of the I mean, there was a program out there that we're working on putting together a program for students, exactly.
Right, so where they go from high school to this charter school, and it's also in combination with a community college there, so you're accelerating the movement of the education system for that particular student.
Yeah, for creating flexibility, because there's some kids who are ready to go to that next step, and can we create more opportunities for them to do that? So we're doing some things to create those opportunities, but we can do more things all the time to blend those systems and make it kind of seamless for students to advance. Again, you know, in
so
the
it's giving people, sorry to interrupt, but it's giving people more choices, because we have, you know, those types of older models. We have homeschooling, we have online schools now, and I'm quite sure that there's going to be a plethora of other methodologies that you can pick and choose from all at the same time.
So as you described it, just to help you understand some of the things that we're doing, so as you described it, we're creating options for students and different schooling options as you just laid it out, but we're going down another level, right? We're creating options within the system, right?
The building blocks.
Within the system, there's lots of ways for kids to get there, right? And so you have that in some schools that are embracing ELOs and are doing a lot of options, they're creating options, maybe they've got a lot of different elective classes and stuff like that.
ELOs.
Trying to make sure extended learning opportunity.
Thank you.
Just trying to create a lot of options within the system, right? It doesn't have to be this system versus this system. How about within the system, we create lots of pathways and options is what we're trying to do for students.
And with that comes a lot of complication and a lot of tracking.
A lot of opportunity.
Opportunity, absolutely. Because to me, the child comes first in education, which hasn't been the mode or the modality of what we've seen in years past. Certainly not in the way that you and I grew up in.
Right.
And I'm just glad that my hair has turned gray and not loose.
So what we know relative to student performance is that there is disparity. Students who come from socioeconomically disadvantaged homes perform lower on our standardized tests, and that disparity is growing. And part of that disparity is reflected in the fact that kids coming from that background, for whatever reason, just don't access the current system very well. And so we need to find other ways to help them access the system, because these are kids who have potential and capacity, and they can really thrive. And I'll use an example of one of the students in the program you mentioned over at Great Bay. There's a student who came over, in the traditional sense of the word, maybe wasn't one of our top performing students. This student has just excelled and is now a leader and a spokesman for the group of students who are over there. And he's thriving because he's got something that he's engaged in, he's excited about, and he wants to learn and he wants to master. And he can see a bright future for himself. So he's very engaged and excited about the system.
And I think that's the great thing, is being able to give more options. And I wish you an awful lot of luck going forward.
Appreciate that.
There's going to be a lot of headwind, but I know that when families are engaged, better things happen. I come from a lower middle class, maybe even lower than that, but my mom made sure that we did our homework.
Good.
That we read a lot. I devoured the library, several libraries in my hometown. So learning was always something that was emphasized in our larger family. She was one.
So we want to instill that in every single student in New Hampshire.
And my brother is the only one without an advanced degree among 17 cousins. Wow. But that's right. He owns a multi-million-dollar business. So he's having
success can be defined a lot of different ways.
But really, to kind of bring this to an end, family engagement is necessary. Parental engagement is highly needed. And I think that's the one thing that we haven't talked about today, and maybe we'll do that another time if you're willing.
Yeah.
Because it really is, in the beginning, little kids love to learn. I'm watching that as we're raising our 3-year-old.
They come up curiously. Yes, they're curious kids.
And we've got to make sure that that continues, but that can only happen not just when they get to grade school or kindergarten, but it starts with the parents. And how do we get that missing piece into the educational system without it becoming a case of the state demands that you do this, Mom and Dad?
Right.
But that'll be a topic for another time.
We can do that. I would be happy to engage on that topic as well. So.
Well, Frank Edelblut, Commissioner of Education here in New Hampshire, I want to say thank you for a delightful time.
Yeah, good conversation
about this.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And we are done.
Croc TV.